The Doctor. In the TARDIS. Next stop, everywhere.
Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Charles Skaggs, back in the TARDIS, ready to talk some New Who with my wonderful partner in time and someone who's dreading a certain co-worker's COVID test, Jesse Jackson. How you doing, Jesse?
I am fantastic. And to be fair, I'm not worried about my coworker. Everyone around her has tested negative. It's just the drama of people that have been on the other side of the building now going, oh, I have to get tested and I can't come back to the office. I have no symptoms. Like, okay, you know, I understand, but we still got to do our jobs. This is one of the reasons I'm very glad personally that I'm able to work from home.
Yes. During this time, because being around people, if I had to be forced to be around people that were kind of prone to getting coronavirus, I would be a little bit nervous, because even if you don't show symptoms, you could still be a carrier and you could transmit it to someone unwittingly. So we have to be very, very careful about that.
Yes. So I will tell you, Charles, in Lake Charles, Louisiana, they give 0 Fs about the corona, and they will tell you, we've lived through 2 hurricanes, we're not wearing a mask. And I'm like, okay. 2 hurricanes and corona? I mean, like, one is not, does not mean it doesn't follow you can't get the other. So it was very interesting, and I'm glad to get back to, God help me, sane Texas. Yeah. And I don't think Texas is sane, but at least compared to Louisiana, nothing but love for them. But we aren't here to talk about corona.
Yeah, no, there's a certain element of social Darwinism in there that's eventually going to catch up with them, right?
I think so.
So in the meantime, though,
yes,
as we try to play it safe and hide out from the coronavirus, we are going to be talking here at episode 209, we're going to be talking Aliens of London / World War III. And thankfully, joining us after far too long of a hiatus, everyone please welcome back to Next Stop Everywhere, DJ Nik. Yay. Welcome back, Nick. Yay!
Hey guys, can I say that it's really weird that for once I'm actually open to say I like to surround myself with negative people?
Yes, that is well said, sir.
I hate to say, in this day and age, I guess that could be the motto. It's like, surround yourself with negative people. But aside from that, I'm so happy to be back with you both. It's been way too long. Super been looking forward to discussing some New Who with you both. And, cannot thank you both enough for wanting to have me on. Really appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to this one a lot.
You're always welcome to come on our podcast. We love talking to you. Obviously, I can't get enough of you because, hey, we're talking stuff on the Phantom Zone. We're talking the boys on the Phantom Zone right now, which we'll talk about a little bit later after we discuss the episode. But like it or not, you're stuck with me, pal. You're just going to have to deal with it. All right. So,
thank you.
Like I said, we're talking Aliens of London, World War III, a 2-parter from the Christopher Eccleston era. So this was the 4th and 5th episodes of Series 1 from 2005, written by Russell T. Davies, the showrunner at the time. Directed by Keith Boak, and of course starring Christopher Eccleston as the Ninth Doctor and Billie Piper as Rose Tyler. Before we get into a little bit of general thoughts on this one, Nick, you were kind enough to volunteer to kind of bite the bullet on this one, or to at least take a bullet, perhaps, I should say. It's probably more accurate to say take a bullet, because this isn't exactly the finest story from the Christopher Eccleston era. I'm guessing that's a pretty safe bet all around. That's kind of how we feel. So, but you volunteered. You said, okay, nobody else is going to take this story, so I might as well go ahead and do that. So, Nick, I want to thank you for saving your fellow special guest companions on this one, that they didn't have to talk about this story.
Well, you know what? It's a pleasure. I mean, I survived rewatching Spawn. I can survive rewatching these episodes. But you know what? It's true. What is really the irony and the sadness is after these two episodes, we actually get one of my favorite Ninth Doctor episodes, which is Dalek, which I absolutely adore. Problem is, everybody wants to do that one.
Well, we've already done it, but we could do a rewatch. If you want to do like a commentary episode with us, we could always treat it as a Next Stop Everywhere revisited episode, if you're ever interested.
That'd actually be pretty cool. But, also, I think the fact that there's Christopher Eccleston obviously sweetens the deal, because I love that man to bits. I know he's apparently very hard to work with. And I guess his CV speaks for itself, that he's very hard to work with. You can ask Marvel, you can ask the BBC, you can ask whoever you want. He seems like a rather tough guy to work with, but he's a wonderful actor. I actually purchased his autobiography, which is actually really, really well written, and it explains to you, I think, why he is the way he is. So I really wanted to, I've really been looking forward to discuss a Christopher Eccleston episode, at least one, no matter how bad it is, because he just sweetens, he makes the bad episodes half decent, at least.
Well, you might as well, I guess you're now our Eccleston expert, because now that you've read the biography, the autobiography, that you probably have a little bit more insight into him than perhaps Jesse or myself.
Well, as I said, it really explains why, as I said, because, just to give a few, obviously, because we have other things to discuss here, but one of the things that I don't know if the two of you knew is he suffered a lot from he was not happy with the way he looked. He actually would, kind of self-body shame himself. He always felt like he was...
Because of his ears or nose or...
Yeah, just in general, he felt like he was never good enough and never attractive enough. And that always played a lot into his feeling of self-esteem and self-worth, which caused him also to lash out a lot of people because he felt very self-conscious. And they explained that. And also the fact that he came from a very low working class family and kind of worked his way to the top, and I think always had a bit of a always given should we say richer folks or the powers that be a wider berth because of it. Which would explain also his outlook on certain things, i.e. the BBC, Disney, and what have you. But it's a really interesting read. The title is "I Love the Bones of You," which is a really, really, really good. It's a really good book. I suggest everybody read it. It's fascinating.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've talked about this before. I adored him in The Leftovers. I think that is truly one of his best roles and just a fantastic series. And I think he is brilliant in it. And so he was very charming when he was on the sports station here talking about The Leftovers, and he seemed energetic about it. And they didn't ask him any Doctor Who questions. They waited till the very end and, said Christopher Eccleston from The Leftovers, and oh yes, Doctor Who, and so he was a very good interview and a good sport with this, couple of sports guys talking about this HBO series. So
it's probably wondering why are sports guys talking about this?
Yes.
But okay, you go where the agents send you, I guess. All right,
exactly.
Well, he is also a big soccer fan, so maybe they talk some soccer as well.
That's possible. That's a good thought. So Jesse, what are your general thoughts? Because, like I said, Nick was kind enough to throw himself on the grenade on this one. But this is one of the few. These two episodes and then Boomtown are the three episodes we haven't discussed yet from the Christopher Eccleston era. So obviously we had to get around to these eventually. But
yeah,
how do you feel about these episodes in general? Did you enjoy your rewatch?
Yeah, and so I have not. There are certain Modern Who episodes I've gone back and watched multiple times because we did not talk about Eccleston's era or Tennant's era, really Smith's era, on a weekly basis. So I had just seen this episode once.
Okay.
And so I vaguely remembered it, came on, and I actually enjoyed this a lot. I think
Did you enjoy it more than the first time you watched it?
Yeah, because if the first time I watched it, right, I'm binging.
Mm-hmm.
Ken had given me the DVDs, and I'm just going through each episode trying to understand. So, and in this one, I really, and I've said this many times, Charles and Nick, the more I never understood when I only watched this the first time how Eccleston could be anyone's doctor. I had a guy I work with like, oh, Eccleston's my doctor. I'm like, really? Why? I mean, that's just.
Yeah.
But as I watch this, I admire his performance more, and I say again, it is a shame we only got one season of him as the doctor. And so I liked this episode a lot. In fact, I saw on IMDb it had a 7. I was like, oh, I need to give this a better rating because that's way too low. It's not a perfect episode, and I do think if you there may be a little too many Kevin Smith-style jokes built in there, but I happen to adore Kevin Smith movies, so I don't mind fart jokes. So that didn't bother me.
So you can appreciate juvenile humor.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
And so I like this episode a lot. Now, it did go me get the rabbit hole of, I don't remember Harriet Jones being a good person. I remember Harriet Jones being a bad person. Wait a minute, she's good in this? And we'll get to that there, but that was the thing that confused me. But I was really happy we picked this one, and I'm excited to talk about you and Nick.
Well, yeah, obviously because this takes place before the Christmas invasion. So yeah,
right.
That's why.
Yeah.
So
did you like it more a second viewing?
No, because I've seen this several times.
Okay.
Obviously I watched it initially when I got my hold, when I was, binge watching Doctor Who bootleg DVDs that friends were kind enough to burn for me and loan to me so that because it wasn't being shown here in America properly, and the internets being what the internets were back in the day. So this was very, initially I was very glad to see it, but obviously over time, I've come to realize that this story, it's entertaining and it's a decent story. It's all right, but it seems like it's the first story from the modern era that really feels like it should have been relegated to the Sarah Jane Adventures. Like it almost seems like this story, possibly because it introduces the Slitheen, and the farting jokes and the very lighthearted comedic nature of a lot of the story that it kind of feels like it should have belonged or it should have been saved until the Sarah Jane Adventures was launched, or maybe it was kind of like maybe it was the inspiration that gave Russell T Davies the idea, like, hey, maybe we should be doing like Doctor Who for kids, and maybe it gave him the idea to like, okay, yeah, we should do something more along those lines, since instead of Doctor Who's supposed to be all ages, but this story doesn't, in my opinion at least, doesn't quite reach the all ages level in a lot of ways, and maybe that's just me, but that's how I view it. So we can talk about that. There are some good things though about the story. Primarily, and this is definitely one of the topics I want to cover, is Rose's return to see her mom, Jackie, and Mickey 1 year later after she left, and the repercussions of that. So, and that's I think for me that's the prime real estate of this story for me. So we'll get into that. All right,
Charles, I did want to mention
go ahead.
one thing, though. I mean, you are right when you say there are a lot of almost puerile elements in this story, but at the same time, I think maybe they wanted to remind us that the Doctor Who started out as a kids' show, and so maybe they're like the impetus was that, and so they wanted to give some, maybe exceeding, going past that, but I think might have been the fact that they wanted to remind us that it was also a kids' show and it wasn't. It could have been that impetus too. Maybe.
I get that. I do get that. But maybe it just feels like, because it kind of feels after watching Rose and then watching The End of the World and The Unquiet Dead, this story just feels, a little out of place with those.
The tone is drastically different.
Right.
I will agree.
And considering that Russell T Davies didn't really do something along these lines.
Yeah, that's why maybe it also throws people for a loop as well, because it's so different compared to what he'd done before. The episodes prior to this one.
He might have thought that, well, yeah, let's try to honor something that, or try to do something that honored that this was originally a kids show, but Doctor Who over time, over these decades, has become something else, something more than that, and so now it feels a little out of place, I think.
I agree. I mean, I'm not a big fan of fart jokes either, and I have to say, you know what? It depends on the day that I watch this. On some days I forgive it, other times I cringe. It depends on the mood that I'm in.
Yeah.
And I also think, as I kind of defend what I understand is not a blink or a the Doctor.
Yeah, right? I don't want to
want
to discourage anybody from liking this episode. Because if you love Doctor Who, love it.
Yeah,
embrace it.
The other thing I think is that judging this in the context, similar like when we're watching Classic Who, and I go, I have to understand pace is going to be different. This is the first season of Russell T Davies bringing the show back. And so you could see him trying different palettes to try to figure out where he wants this Doctor to be. And so and I do think that's very insightful that he may have thought after the fact, okay, I don't know if this really worked with the Doctor, but I think if we did a different kind of show with this kind of feel, and we could use Sarah Jane. I see the connection definitely once you bring it up. Point A to point B very easily from how this could have been an influence on that.
Yeah, it does feel a lot like a prototype Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yes,
show.
I agree.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. All right,
the cheesy monster, right?
Yeah,
he fits in and it's everything. So yeah, good job.
Yep. All right. And also, if you notice, the Slitheen had a lot more activity on the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah. In fact, no surprise. I mean, they would then feature heavily in the Sarah Jane Adventures.
Yeah, because I could definitely see kids, thinking they're interesting aliens, they're fun.
They would gravitate to those kind of aliens.
Yeah, and so I think the Slitheen worked better on the Sarah Jane Adventures than they do main Doctor Who. All right.
Agreed.
Guest cast this time, we of course have the return of Noel Clarke as Mickey, or as the Ninth Doctor likes to call him, Ricky Smith. And we have Camille Kaduri as Jackie Tyler. Dame Penelope Wilton makes her debut as Harriet Jones, MP Flydale North. Yes, we know who you are. And she turns up obviously later in the Christmas Invasion, and then ends up dying in the Stolen Earth. Toward the end of David Tennant's era. But she's also primarily known to a lot of fans these days as Isabel Crawley on Downton Abbey, if you're a fan of that show, as my wife Lori and I am. You probably recognize her. And you probably recognize her as Sean's mom, Barbara, as in, they're coming to get you, Barbara, in Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah.
And they did make
Charles,
that joke. Go ahead.
I would also like to mention, I actually mentioned this on one of the specials that we did on Next Stop Everywhere. Folks who followed the BBC as kids will also remember her from Jackanory, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with. Jackanory was a program where celebrities would be just them in front of a camera and they would read a book to you before audiobooks became a thing.
Oh.
And Dame Penelope actually read Alice in Wonderland. And I actually have.
Well, she'd be really good for that.
Yeah, in fact, because my grandmother, who lived in the UK, to make a story short, she lived in Brighton, and she would send me VHS tapes of the BBC for me to watch. Because obviously, being in Italy, I didn't get all this fine programming. We just got scantily clad women, and at the time, I was not old enough to appreciate that. So she sent us these VHS tapes, and on one of these, there was Dame Penelope reading Alice in Wonderland on Jackanory, which is a fantastic program, and hopefully they might bring it back because it's just beautiful. Just wanted to open that little parenthesis, and now I'll close it.
No problem, Nick. I appreciate you chiming in. All right. We also had Annette Badland as Margaret Blaine, a.k.a. Blonfelfotch Pasimier de Slitheen, say that 3 times fast, who makes a return later in Series 1 in Boomtown. So it's kind of interesting that both the Margaret episodes were saved to last here on Next Stop Everywhere. I'm not sure why, but that's how it worked out. She also appeared in a couple of Big Finish audios. She played a character named Carlina in a Fifth Doctor Big Finish audio Equilibrium, and also a character named Thelma in a Fourth Doctor Tom Baker audio Suburban Hell. And she was also in the movie Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. That's the Tim Burton remake, the not-so-good one. Yeah. And she's also recently appeared on an episode of The Crown, and she was also on Outlander not too long ago. So just thought I'd mention that. Naoko Mori makes her debut as Dr. Toshiko Sato. So Tosh from Torchwood makes her debut here. Obviously pre-Torchwood, doesn't exist until another year later. And she's been in addition to Torchwood, she's been in the movies Mamma Mia, Here We Go Again, and also in the movie Spice World, if you're a Spice Girls fan. The movie Hackers, which is probably the definitive Hollywood thinks they know what computer hackers are movie, and gets it completely wrong, by the way. That was the movie that co-starred Angelina Jolie, if you remember that movie from back in the day. And also she played a character named Sarah, who was a friend of Saffron, Safi, on Absolutely Fabulous. Yeah. Okay, which is a great British sitcom that was imported over here and got a lot of play over here in the States, which I really enjoy. It's a great series. Mm-hmm. A lot of fun. Jimmy V plays the Space Pig. And, of course, Jimmy V is well known to Doctor Who fans as Banakafalata in Voyage of the Damned. And so Banakafalata turns up in the story. He also played the Mox of Balhoun in The End of the World. And Krislok the Grask on the Sarah Jane Adventures serial The Temptation of Sarah Jane Smith. And also the Grask, not the Grask, in another Sarah Jane story, Death of the Doctor, which, of course, featured Matt Smith, I believe. That was the one with Matt Smith. And he was also recently R2-D2 in Star Wars The Last Jedi, taking over from Kenny Baker. Just thought I'd give a little nod to those actors. Nice. Because you got to mention Banakafalata. Come on. Trivia this time. The production team apparently intended to suggest that the murdered prime minister in this story was the real life incumbent Tony Blair. Yeah. And on the DVD commentary, producer Phil Collinson explained that they had hired an actor to play the dead body on the understanding that the guy was a Tony Blair impersonator. But when the guy's resemblance to Tony Blair proved less than accurate, they decided, well, we'll just avoid showing the body. So that connection was never made. That was basically, they were intending Tony Blair. The guy didn't look like Tony Blair, so they cut it out.
And no surprise, they don't even mention the Prime Minister's name. He's only known as the Prime Minister.
Right, exactly. Prime Minister, I guess, is his name.
Yes.
Aliens of London, also, is the last story to have the acronym that UNIT stood for United Nations Intelligence Task Force. It was later changed to Unified Intelligence Task Force in the 10th Doctor story, The Sontaran Stratagem, after complaints from the real United Nations. Wow. Because apparently they are slightly unhip. They don't get it. They just don't get it.
So, excuse me, Charles, just for a moment.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I feel better.
Right? Yeah. Well, thank you for that profound statement. Can we quote you on that? All right. So, yeah, they're a little disappointed, but, the UN decided, well, maybe we don't want to be associated with a fictional organization that fights aliens, I guess. So, way to have a whole good sense of humor about everything, UN. All right. Also, lastly, the role of Harriet Jones was specifically written for Penelope Wilton by Russell T. Davies.
Nice.
Wilton apparently was drawn to the role after working previously with Davies on the BBC drama Bob and Rose, which I'd never seen. But apparently they established a good working relationship. So she was encouraged by the fact that he was writing for the show and agreed to do it. So pretty cool, right?
Yep.
So then another great acting cred in along the lines of, say, a Sir Derek Jacobi.
Yes.
Turns up later as the master. So yeah, getting some British acting royalty here. So we got 3 topics today. First topic, let's talk what I want to call 1 year later. Mm-hmm. And this week I want to talk about the Ninth Doctor, Rose Tyler, Mickey Smith, and Jackie Tyler. So this is essentially, like I said earlier, Rose coming back, reuniting with her mum, Jackie, 1 year later, even though she thinks, she was just gone for a night. And it turns out, well, no, you've been away a little longer, at least according to Earth time, because, Doctor, you got the time wrong again. Although maybe it was a little bit help from the TARDIS on this one because of needing to deal with the Slitheen threat, I guess. So there's obviously repercussions, some interesting repercussions. We find out that Mickey was believed to have murdered Rose, which makes their reunion slightly awkward. And Jackie is not coping very well with the idea that her daughter is off traveling with the Doctor in time and space, and has no qualms about letting the Doctor know that by slapping him upside the face really hard. So, Nick, since you're our special guest companion this time, why don't we start with you and get your thoughts on Rose and the Doctor returning to the Powell estates?
Well, first off, I have to say that I'm a huge fan of Rose Tyler's and a huge fan of just the actress in general because she just is fantastic.
Billie Piper, yeah.
Billie Piper. I actually loved her both as a pop star, and I admittedly say I actually watched her when she was known only as Billie. And she used to do, she was like the UK's answer to Britney Spears before but she never obviously got as big as Britney did. But she actually.
So she was going like doing the one name thing like Madonna there for a while?
She was known as Billie, and she was actually, I often used to watch her on Top of the Pops at the time and stuff. And so she's actually a decent dancer and not a bad singer. Luckily, she realizes she's a better actress, and in fact, she's just progressed and gone from strength to strength, and now she's in theater and everything else, just huge. But going to this episode, the reunion between Billie and her mom is, the first time I actually saw this, it brought me to tears. I will be honest, because. Mm-hmm. The fact that Rose doesn't realize that she's been gone for a year and everybody's been searching for her, and there's been posters out saying, "Have you seen my daughter?" And Jackie sees Rose, and obviously she drops her coffee mug and she's like, "Oh, you're safe," and everything else. And it must be so jarring because you can see the look on Rose's face. She's just totally jarred coming into this, thinking she's been gone for a night. I'll just say I spent the night at my friend's house. And just the world comes crashing down on her. And it was just the back and forth between Jackie and Rose was just beautiful. And like I said, it actually moved me. Granted, they didn't stay on that for too long, but I thought it was a great exchange. And I really feel bad for Mickey. I have to be honest, because apparently he
got a raw deal, didn't he?
Apparently he was interrogated like 4 times by the police, according to him, if not more. He was taken into questioning 4 times. I'm like, man, I feel really bad for him. And also the fact he didn't get to date in the meantime because everybody thought he was a murderer. So I do feel bad for him. So
that is... Go. I just wanted to jump in, right? You're right. That is a funny line when he's like, they're awkward, like, "Hey, you see anyone?"
Don't you steal my quote, Jesse.
And I'm not going to do the quote, but just the idea, right? Like, he's honest enough to say, now, partly the reason I haven't dated anyone else is everyone thinks I murdered you, so I have no game right now interest. It was very, very funny.
Yeah, the fact that he's kind of out of the dating pool, I felt really bad for him in that sense. But I think
it's interesting they never thought that Jackie might have murdered her daughter because, no, it had to be the boyfriend.
Exactly.
Like especially the one who's black. Just saying.
Yes,
And
this could
even
be colored
even
by
though her mo- and even though her mother knew that she was hanging out with this guy called the Doctor, uh, apparently he's not a suspect. They think Mickey did it.
I have to
Come on,
admit that that rewatching this with 2020 eyes, Charles,
right?
my mind was colored by what's been going on in the world. It's like, okay, they're going to pick on the black guy. You know what? I didn't think though at the first time it was actually this. I think it was just they went to the boyfriend who happens to be black. But then again, it's hard not to escape that watching it from 2020 eyes.
Yeah.
But yes, I really felt bad for Mickey, and I think he just feels so cut off from the world, and he feels so emasculated because he sees the Doctor, and who he barely knows sort of much about, but he feels like he's been ousted from his position as boyfriend, and in fact he keeps trying to reassert himself as Rose's boyfriend, tries to kiss her and everything else, even if he actually is able to get a kiss before she leaves at the end of the episode. But other than that, you can see that he is just so emasculated. That tends to happen when you're around the Doctor. One's masculinity is almost called into question when it comes to this incredibly charismatic and often handsome character in the room. At least when it comes to New Who, anyway. But it was.
It's kind of hard to stack yourself up against a guy with a time machine. I'm just saying.
Not to mention that, but yes, it is true. And hey, I think Christopher Eccleston's crooked smile is hard to beat. That's one of the things I think women find at least from the women that I've spoken to, find really attractive about him is his crooked smile. Like, it is so cute and kind of sneaky. Yeah. But yeah, so I really enjoyed seeing all our characters getting this reunion for sure.
Okay. And Jesse, how about you? What are your thoughts on Rose catching up with her mom and the finding out that all the pain that her mom went through during her disappearance?
I had forgotten that twist, only watching it once, and I'm reminded that once again you needed that scene in the New Who because a percentage of people had not watched the classic Who. And so they would think that, of course, if the Doctor has a time machine, he should be able to control it. And I think this was a great way of showing, no, he doesn't. And to set that up, because he immediately, right, it's only been 12 hours. It's like, oh, no, it's 12 months. One, it's a funny scene, but it also lays, some, facts, the premise that the TARDIS doesn't always take you where you're supposed to go and control it, right? I thought it was a really good scene at the end where, they said, I could be back in 10 seconds. And they wait 10 seconds and they're not back. And so I like that a lot. Right there with you on Mickey, I thought that you're worried for him, you're concerned for him. They're all likable. I remember not liking Jackie when I originally watched this first season, and we've now gone and seen previous episodes, and I like her much more now, and I see her from a perspective. And it's just one other thing that was a really nice scene was toward the end when Rose brings a full suitcase, right? Then she says, you got me last time. I'm ready now. I'm in this for true. Was a really cool moment. And I go back to, I love Eccleston as the Doctor. I love his charm. He makes a joke. And that might be one of your quotes about, yes, his television gets football, which I smiled because, you had just said, Nick, that he is a huge soccer fan, right?
Yeah.
So
right.
that's a kind of nice, of course it gets the football. And his strength, him knowing what's going on, the controlling the situation, never getting flat, he's not flappable. He's kind of, okay, this is it, which is really cool to see him. And I think maybe that's another reason why I enjoyed this a little more is we only got X amount of episodes of him. And so even if it's not as strong as one, just getting him to see the Doctor gives me a little bit of enjoyment out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. And, I mean, I feel personally, I talked about this a little bit, that I feel bad for Mickey because he was blamed for Rose's disappearance, rather unfairly, in my opinion.
Yes.
Especially with, knowing that the doctor was established and known to Jackie. But what really kind of bothers me more, and still, is the way the Ninth Doctor treats Mickey.
Yes.
He won't call him by his name.
He's very dismissive, yeah.
He's very dismissive, insults his intelligence. He comes like he's like a jealous schoolboy almost in a lot of ways. Like, oh, this is, here's Rose's ex. So here I am going to try and put him down and show him up. And Mickey makes dumb statements a lot of times. But the Doctor could easily overlook that if he wanted to. But this incarnation tends to be a bit testy at times.
Or maybe he just wants to be the protagonist, which is something that, the Doctor tends to have, as in it wants to be all about him. And I actually had a question for both of you. Are the two of you aware of when it comes to British concept of chavs?
Yes, I am.
I am not.
Basically, especially you should be aware of this after watching New Earth, right? Because Cassandra called Rose a chav.
Because basically, Jesse, to give you a brief description, one could almost equate chavs to being trailer park people in the U.S.
Okay.
Pretty
white
much.
trash, white trash
people.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people might have seen, just to add a quick thing when it comes to Jackie, as the stereotypical chav mom.
Right.
Because the way she dresses, the things that she talks about, etc. And I'm sure that there are people of maybe, not to bring this into a classist discussion, but I'm sure that maybe people from a certain class were kind of laughing, saying, look at the dumb blonde chav. I'm sure that was the case. I'm sure.
Right. And that way people could feel better about themselves.
Yes.
Watching it, yeah.
And they do kind of give her, and not necessarily, but like the Roseanne Barr sitcom, right, really embraced the lower middle class. And so there is that vibe there that, this is a lower middle class, if not a lower class. I think, to me, Charles, it isn't that Mickey is the ex-boyfriend. I just think the Doctor looks at him as the weakest link, right? He's a character that has not passed muster. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he gave him a fair chance. But I think this Doctor can be very quick to, you're either
judge.
Yeah, you judge. You're either smart or you're not. You're either useful or you're not. You either amuse me or you don't. And makes that decision in just in an instant. And then later, no matter how hard Mickey tries, it's the Doctor really does, and we've talked about in the past that he picks up strays. He truly does kind of treat Mickey almost like a pet, like someone like, oh, what do you like? Good puppy, like, oh, look, you did a trick, like, way to go. Versus and I feel your frustration totally for the character.
But at the same time, it's a nice nod to the first Doctor, William Hartnell, as well, because you can see that it's the same person,
right?
Except
the irascibility
through the regenerations that he's gone through. So I think it's nice in continuity, because this is maybe the kind of behavior that the first Doctor would have as well.
Yeah, the first Doctor was obviously a little bit off-putting a lot of times, and prone to those snap judgments like Jesse was mentioning. Mm-hmm. So it's not out of character entirely, certainly. One of the things that I find really interesting about the premise of Rose's return here in the story is that it kind of establishes to the audience, to the modern Who audience, that there can be repercussions to traveling through time.
Yes.
It's not always perfect. There are consequences sometimes. And in this case, one of the consequences is, well, the Doctor gets the time wrong, or perhaps the TARDIS did.
Yeah.
She'll never tell. And so she, Rose's return is 12 months as opposed to 12 minutes. And so the consequences are that Jackie's been missing her for a year, presumes, she's been missing, has been searching for her since. So she's been living with this. And Rose, I think for the first time, starts to grasp the consequences here that, because of traveling with the doctor and Rose being young and impulsive, just running into the TARDIS at the end of the episode, Rose, that she didn't really think about what might happen when she got back. And so when she gets back, it's not all, oh, Rose is back. Everybody give me a big hug. It's more like, where have you been? Like, I've been worried sick to death about you for the past year. And poor Mickey was accused of your murder, and, we worried about you, and we had no idea how to reach you or where you were. So Rose is, for the first time, I think, really coming to terms with that. And it's, giving her a little bit of pause here that maybe she may not want to continue traveling, perhaps. And she kind of debates that a little bit toward the end of the episode, when, she's like talking about her mom, and then the doctor turns it around on her and says, well, you could stay here with your mom, but there's this really cool thing happening at the other side of this, in another galaxy right now. So be a shame if you missed it.
Yeah. He's not.
He kind of manipulates her a little bit.
And I think that's another reason to praise the episode, is that is a pretty deep theme that they're addressing here, and the idea, and they do it well. There's the scene where you see the missing Rose posters scattered around, that are some to be distributed, some out there. By the way, I had a slight hint, because I'm warped, that you were going to use Warren Zevon's song titles as your topics.
Warren Zevon?
Yeah, Warren, yes.
Yeah.
Because Aliens of London, I hear Werewolves of London, and it was
Aliens of London.
So I was thinking, poor pitiful me, as for poor Mickey and Jackie. So, yeah, for a show that is trying to set its tone, I think those two things, there's consequences moving in time, life continues as you're out there in, space and time, and the doctor not being able, the time not always in sync, are established pretty well in an entertaining way.
Yeah, I just think that this is kind of a rude awakening for Rose a little bit, and a much needed one, in my opinion.
I think, Once Upon a Time said it best. Magic always comes with a price.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's true. So does time travel. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that's really well said. And I agree with you about Billie Piper. She is an amazing actress, right? And Rose she plays Rose as very much spur of the moment, a young woman, not worrying about consequences of what happens later. And you kind of have that awareness. She doesn't even think to say, well, should I check on my mom, right? And how long are we going to be gone? And so to have that rude awakening is very effective.
Yeah. And she's just an amazing actress. And folks, if you're big fans of Billie Piper's work, if you haven't seen it, check her out on Penny Dreadful, because she is amazing in that.
She is fantastic on that. She is fantastic.
Really
it shows you the range of Billie Piper's acting skills.
Well said. She totally kills it, literally, on that show. So one thing I wanted to add before we move on, at the end of the episode, when you were talking about this a little bit earlier, that Rose asked, Jackie and Mickey to wait around for 10 seconds or whatever and wait for the TARDIS to come back. Well, 10 seconds comes, the TARDIS doesn't return, so Jackie's like, okay, and then walks off. But Mickey stays. Mickey sits there in that alleyway, just pulls up, sits on a garbage bin, and just sits there reading, waiting patiently.
Yeah, while reading
with
the
a newspaper. Yeah, while reading the paper, and so he waits for her still. So he still pines for her.
It's a rather melancholy ending, isn't it?
But I think it seems like he's more loyal than Jackie is in a lot of ways.
True.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument, or she's more acceptance.
But it's hard. It's open to different interpretations there, definitely.
But I did notice that too. I thought it was really.
I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was too, that he just sat there and like, okay, I'm going to wait for a while, and waiting on a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So Mickey, you need to go out and play the field a little bit.
See, I would be like, okay, everyone take photos. Look, let's get her on TV. She's alive. And then I guess everyone was there watching the news, so enough people in the neighborhoods did see that she was okay, right?
Yeah, exactly. So anything else about this topic before we move on?
Not on my end, Charles.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Topic number 2. Yes, we know who you are. And this I want to talk about, obviously, Harriet Jones, MP Flydale North, and Toshiko Sato, who, like I mentioned earlier, turns up again as a Torchwood lead character, one of the lead characters. So we get these introduction of both these two, and Harriet Jones obviously comes out as this rather unimpressive initially, MP from a little no-name place called Flydale North. And by the end of the story, she makes a much bigger name for herself and comes across. We find out that she's, destined for greatness as part of England's golden age. Of course, we know what kind of golden age that turns out to be if you watch the Christmas Invasion. But I thought it was an interesting introduction to this character, and also Tosh, who, almost seemed like kind of a throwaway character here. But apparently whatever Russell T. Davies saw in her, he thought that she would be a great fit for Torchwood, and reprised the character, brought the character back for that show to move her over there. So what did you guys make of their introductions? And Jesse, why don't we start with you this time on this one?
So here, right from this one episode, we've gotten themes for Sarah Jane Adventure, and we've got for Torchwood, which is kind of interesting. That
he's laying those seeds down, right?
Yeah, and I think that is, again, right, like he's playing with the format and then goes, well, here I can take from this and this. It's interesting. Tosh was always a great character on Torchwood, so it was good to see her again in this. This would have been the first time, but in a timey-wimey, since I watched Torchwood first, it was like so I think that was
it a nice surprise for you? Because I know that's how Torchwood is your gateway.
Yes, it
to Doctor
was.
Who.
It was really neat to see, and in fact, I was like, "Hey, wait a minute." I like the idea that this is a member of parliament that's just been a backbencher, as she called it. She's been in American terms, a congresswoman for just a very small, unimportant district. She, she's not on any powerful committees. She's just, as she calls it, a backbencher. And I like the idea that she figured out something's going on. She helped to try to figure out and work it when she does discover the weirdness of the body suits. She doesn't panic. She works through and kind of looks for something.
She's startled, but she doesn't freak.
No, she doesn't. And I now am kind of interested in finishing her storyline again, because, like I said, I always think of her as someone who's not a quote unquote hero, right? Like, because the doctor, like, doesn't she look tired? That because she ticked him off. And
I think that's why it was so much more of a disappointment, because she was such a promising character.
Yeah.
And then, she does something very cruel.
Yes.
in the Christmas Invasion. So it feels like you thought you knew this person, you had hopes for them, and they let you down.
And there's also, you can make the argument, right, that the Doctor doesn't like her arrogance, that she's like, you won't always be there, so we have to do this ourselves. And the Doctor, like, don't presume to, I will be there and do it. So anyway, I'm kind of have a little interest in, I don't know if I'll be able to take the time, but I would like to see the rest of her journey. It was good to see her this. It was kind of funny because people aren't saying who she is, but she just got out of the habit of saying her name and where she is, MP from blank blank, MP from blank blank. It was just kind of funny. So
okay, all right, Nick, how about you? What are your thoughts on Harriet Jones and Tosh?
Well, first off, as I've shown my hand very clearly, Dame Penelope is a hero of mine. And I actually hope to someday be able to meet this woman because, as I said, growing up with Jack and Nora in her read and her, instilling the love of Alice in Wonderland in me, I have to give her thanks for that. But when it comes to this character, she kind of reminded me almost, because knowing where this, in hindsight, knowing where this character goes, it kind of reminded me in real life a little bit of Eva Perón from Argentina.
Ooh, that's an interesting comparison. If you're familiar with Eva Perón, yeah. Because
of the fact that she starts very humble beginnings, ends up in a place of power, and then lets power almost corrupt her, if you will. And I guess it's the old adage of power corrupts. And I think that is the case of it, because she comes from a very noble place at first. That's why, as I said, it's like, this is Evita all over again. Because of the fact that she wants to speak for the people, and she has because we can clearly see that the leadership skills that she has from the get-go. It's the fact that she comes across a little bit humble and stuff when it comes to certain people. But, when crisis hits, she's able.
Oh, you kind of froze up there a little bit. There you go.
Oh, yeah. No, sorry, I was saying when crisis hits, she's able to keep her head in the crisis. So it's fantastic.
She's a natural leader.
Yeah, that's right. When it comes to Tosh, I have to admit, she's a bit of a throwaway character in this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she is.
But you can see the potential. I could see the potential that Russell T Davies saw in her for sure. I guess she gets to have the big reveal of the pig, which is a thing. But it's hard to really sort of express an opinion when it comes to her, because we don't really get that much of her in this episode. At least we know what she went on to do, but here,
yeah. She does. She gets a few scenes with the Doctor, which I thought was kind of interesting, because you think she would have mentioned to the other Torchwood members, oh, by the way, I happen to have met the Doctor previously.
It would have been nice to see, right?
Right, and it's the same character, so you think Russell T Davies would have worked that in somehow. But maybe there's a deleted scene with that, I don't know, but on Torchwood. But it seemed a little odd to me that Tosh never mentioned that she actually got to meet the Doctor, or maybe she wasn't aware that this was the Doctor that Jack was talking about all those times. But you think she would have been aware of it.
That's exactly my point. Is that because she's such a beloved character going forward. Mm-hmm. But here they don't really give her much to do aside from raising the sheet and and everybody kind of walking back in horror and saying I've done my sort of analyses on this and it's not human. So, it's like, give me something more, because this character has so much to give. But in this case, not as much as we'd like. She's...
Well, the only thing I could think of is here that Russell T Davies thought, well, here's an interesting Asian actress, as the kind of medical examiner. And here she is, examining an alien or studying an alien. So maybe this type of character would be a good fit for Torchwood.
Yeah, because as you guys were saying, he was laying the seeds for what he'd do later on.
And probably still trying to figure things out, and so he's kind of like cobbling, he gets an idea here, he gets an idea there, and It's like he can, obviously because, hey, he's the showrunner of all of them, he can cherry pick to his heart's content.
I
But,
will. Yeah, I
go
also
ahead.
want to going back when it comes to Harriet Jones. Who leaves an open suitcase with the protocols just there, so conveniently for people to find?
Yes.
Right?
That was very much, and the idea, we have to get the protocols, we have to save the protocols, was, I thought, a little bit silly, because what do you think is in those briefcase? What do you think is going to be magic in that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe she's panicking a little bit. I mean, this was her first real crisis.
Well, no, of course, but the fact is that she happily walks into the Prime Minister's office, and the case is just...
And starts snooping.
Yes.
She's actually just rummaging through, super high security
oh, what's
papers.
this? What's this? An open, important security briefcase? Let me start rifling through this. Let's see what's up here.
Her MP sense was, instead of Spidey sense, her member of Parliament sense was tingling that something was wrong.
Yeah, just, maybe she's just, curious by nature and wanted to check it out.
Oh, no, of course. Well, I mean, I will hand it to her. She's quite the sleuth, and she's very she's able to she goes into stealth mode very well. I will hand it to her.
Yes, very nice.
She's a ninja.
Because she seems to, be totally invisible to people. Nobody seems to notice that she's around. I'm like,
right, that's
wow,
her,
man.
that's her superpower, is invisibility because of her lack of importance. Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's true. I guess nobody sort of notices, the kind of gray personality in the room, which is a lesson, I guess, to all of us, is never sort of underestimate the so-called gray personality.
Yeah. Now, I also thought that she had a great scene when the doctor is, the doctor hands her hands Rose a bottle or something, or, offers her a drink. And she's like, no, do it to the left. Yeah, it goes to the left first when you pass that around.
Well, at least she's studied her, her etiquette.
Yes, she does.
Well, she's a politician. She has to know how to drink, right? Because, that's how you get to know people in these kind of situations and network.
There you see, your prime minister material. You know the direction in which alcohol is offered. So that's
exactly.
Right.
She's got that social etiquette down, right? The important things in life. Exactly. All right. All right. Go ahead.
No, she's ready for the Balmoral test. Just in case. As for people who are trying to catch up on the Crown, right?
Yeah,
she's ready just in case.
That's a Crown Season 4 reference there.
Thank you,
that's
Charles.
very timely. Very timely.
That. Thank you, sir.
Yep. I caught that. All right. If there's nothing else, let's move on. Topic number 3, and a topic I wanted to call Atomic Blonde. Get it?
Yes.
So this is obviously Margaret. A reference to, Blonde Felfach Passamir de Slitheen. And the Slitheens plan to essentially nuke the planet and make it radioactive so that people can buy chunks of it to fuel their spaceships. That's the plan.
I don't know if that's a good plan, Charles.
So Nick, what are your thoughts on the introduction of the Slitheen and their rather Ferengi-esque plan to make some money off of the radioactive ruins of planet Earth?
Okay, well, let's be honest. The plan is probably not the most airtight plan you could come up with. That said, it was... Yeah, but I mean, look, how many times have we seen, either the Master or other alien races come up with the weirdest plans in the world? But it's
Doctor Who.
Exactly.
It comes to the territory.
We buy into it because Doctor Who, right?
You roll with it. It's Doctor Who.
Exactly. And I'm totally cool with that because I'm like, it's a wacky plan. It's cool. It's Doctor Who. I mean, I'm digging this. I'm not going to poke too many holes in that because I'm not going to nitpick because it's not like this is your blockbuster movie or what have you. It's like, so it was fine. But I have to say, once again, we have such a great cast of actors and actresses. And it's a shame that they do end up doing kind of puerile things, i.e. the farting and what have you, which, as I said, depending on the day I watch it, it either gets on my nerves or it doesn't. I actually remember introducing my head of PR to Doctor Who. Now she's a Whovian herself and super proud of it. And we actually sat down and watched, obviously the Christopher Eccleston run all the way through. And when we got to this episode, I kind of almost felt embarrassed, I have to be honest. Because when the farting started going on, I kind of looked at her and I said, look, don't worry, it's not all like this. It's just this one time, live with it. And she's like, oh, it's fine. Because she was madly in love with Christopher Eccleston by this point, so it was all good. But
you bring up a good point, because it is kind of embarrassing to show this story and try to hype the greatness of Doctor Who to a prospective newbie, a new Whovian, and they're like, okay, so essentially this is like an Adam Sandler sci-fi thing. What is this?
Yeah, we're getting fart jokes and stuff, and that's why I had to basically tell her. I said, look, it's just this once. Don't worry, And as I said, this woman works for me, and I'm like, just give it a chance. And then of course when the other episodes came off, she was like, oh, I love Doctor Who. But that said, I don't mind the Slitheen, to be honest. I think they're a decent alien race. And I have to also hand it, look, Doctor Who has often given us some rather hokey special effects, costumes and what have you. We buy into it because there's more, it goes beyond the costumes and beyond the monsters. It's the stories, right? Yeah. But what I thought was great, I was actually entranced when I saw the effects of the eyes. The blinking of the eyes is actually pretty creepy. In other instances, you have like the Slitheen walk into the room and she's talking and the lips don't move. And I'm like,
right,
okay, somebody forgot that. But I forgive it.
It is a bit dodgy,
It is dodgy, I agree. But I think it's a very creative concept at the same time. But I have a question also for the both of you here is, when they take the skins off, they turn the skins into costumes. Is that the deal? Because we see Harriet kind of just taking the human skin and throwing it around as if it's nothing. And I think also, how do they turn it into human skin? That's never explained. Or from human skin to costumes.
That's a great question, because if you notice when Harriet was like looking over the prime minister suit or whatever. It kind of looked like it had this foam interior inside, this foam lining. And so I agree with you, Nick. It's like, okay, so how does this work? Because you think it would look kind of gross, bloody, red, like there was, like that because of blood and guts and whatnot being inside these things.
Yeah, it's
you would think it would look skin. It's just like, okay, so you just kind of like, it's like what, a banana peel now? What is this?
Or it looked like a wetsuit, right? Like that you crawl into.
Yeah.
I do think it is funny, and you kind of do that, like you unzip your forehead
and
then
the zipper on the forehead.
Yeah, it's like, okay, but where's?
So how do you get it above your shoulders?
Yeah,
then
thank you very much, Charles. Yes, like, okay, so is there a zipper in the back that hides afterwards? I don't know, but
not sure how that works.
And I do have they have fun with it. And I agree with you, Nick. The actors who play this, especially the three that are in 10 Downing Street, really, and they chew the scenery. They're corny. They're like, oh, we get to do a hunt, and they're just all of this. There's so much fun on this, and they do treat their suits like I would when I'm dressed up with a tie, right? Like the moment I can undo my top button to let the tie down, I do, because I'm not comfortable with that. And it's like the moment they can get out of it, they do.
Yeah. It's weird that should we say the mechanics, is a bit weird. I mean,
the physics of it,
yeah, the physics of it is a little bit sometimes hard to swallow. But like I said, it's one of those shows where you shouldn't dwell on the physics of it all. But at the same time, I'm like, sometimes they have zippers, sometimes they don't. It's like, what are you guys trying to do here exactly? And I say this with great love. I chuckle when I think of it, but it just kind of made me laugh. And it's the physics of it which got to me. But as I said, the design of the characters themselves, I thought was actually quite original and quite fun. And I mentioned the eyes blinking is a great effect. That creeps me out still thinking about it today.
Yeah, it's kind of they're a very interesting design because they're kind of like they're these big kind of troll ogre like monsters body wise.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of have like these big beer guts, but they have like really sharp long claws at the ends of their fingertips. And and they're tall and they're big and they're imposing, but their head doesn't seem like it fits the right body type because their head is like this baby cherub type design, almost like this big Cabbage Patch doll with jet black eyes.
If E.T. and Yoda had a baby, it would look like that.
Yeah, or more like E.T. and Baby Yoda, perhaps, because
I thought
with those
E.T.
big
and
black
Baby
eyes.
Yoda with the neck and the eyes.
Yeah.
I was like, that's
Right.
E.T. and Baby Yoda.
Yeah, exactly. So, but the head doesn't seem like it matches with the body.
No.
Like it should be something else, or the body should be completely different to match the head. One or the other, for me. But what I do like though is that the Slitheen are essentially this family of criminals. They're the Slitheen crime family.
Yeah, it's like a gangster alien family.
Yeah, you almost have to expect that they would run for political office and take over, right? With that kind of ambition. But maybe there's a Doctor Who story in there somewhere, or a Sarah Jane story. But yeah, that they're essentially a family of ne'er-do-wells. Yeah. So they're working together as this this horrible family unit. Again, it feels a lot like the Ferengi from Deep Space Nine in a lot of ways, but I think because of the design of the costumes, you don't take them. I mean, you didn't really take the Ferengi that seriously on Star Trek or Star Trek Next Generation or Deep Space Nine, but you kind of took them more seriously than the Slitheen, I think. At least I do. So. But as we find out later in Boomtown, Margaret is the real one to watch out for. She's far more of a threat, and I'm still kind of not sure how she survives that explosion that kills all the other Slitheen, but conveniently not her.
Because Doctor Who, Charles. Because
Doctor Who, exactly. Like we wanted the actress back to do a second appearance, and she survived somehow.
Yes,
that was the explanation.
Does. She's really fun to watch.
I mean, Annette Badland does know how to chew a scene. I will give her that. And
yes.
she's and I think she's much more effective in Boomtown, obviously, when it's just her. But this was her introduction, and I thought it was a fun little introduction.
But once again, Charles, to pick up on your point, you said you didn't find the Slitheen particularly menacing.
Not really.
But but to go to the initial point that we made at the start of this review is, you could, hence an alien geared towards kids once again, or a younger audience. I mean, within the pantheon of the aliens, the wonderful aliens that we have in Doctor Who, I don't mind them. I mean, they are kind of the kind of cousin that you don't really want to see too often, but is there. But I appreciate them for that. Like that cousin. You're like, okay, you're cool.
I get it that they're fun. I get that.
Yeah,
and I think it's
fun.
maybe, and I think it's just, more the fact that coming from my perspective as, 51-year-old man, sure, I'm not the target audience for these
Exactly.
guys.
That's the thing.
And that's okay. But, to be fair, there are other aliens that I do find, interesting on Doctor Who. So it's just a little frustrating for me as a viewer that I didn't get something along those lines. But I could see how other people may feel differently, and that's okay. I'm cool with that. But I don't expect my perspective to be everybody else's perspective.
No, of course. It's not the Weeping Angels, but it's
yeah.
But
exactly.
they're they're part of the alien pantheon, I guess. It's cool, I guess.
And now I want to see the Weeping Angels slaughter a bunch of Slitheen. Thank you.
Yay! I want that now.
I think we all want that now. I think we all deserve that now for 2020.
That'd be kind of cool.
Weeping Angels killing Slitheen. There you go. Make it happen, Chibnall. I have spoken.
You gave us the Cybermen versus the Daleks. You can do that.
Yeah, exactly. If you can do that, if you can have the Master Trained Time Lords and Cybermen, then you can give us Weeping Angels killing Slitheen.
Yes.
Make it happen. All right. Anything else about this episode that we overlooked, guys?
No, I'm trying to think off the top of my head here. It's, as I said, it leads into one of a fantastic episode, Charles, as I mentioned before.
Dalek, yes. Exactly.
Yes.
That's a much more fun one to talk about.
Yeah, no, but this was just as fun. It's entertaining for different reasons, you know, because, exactly. And I think that's the beauty also of Doctor Who, is you either get a very profound story with a lot of important messages, and sometimes you get lighter fare like this. But it works at the end of the day. You know, it's not like, oh, you know, was actually, you know, gag worthy. I never want to watch this again, etc. As I said, I've seen Spawn. This is actually gold compared to Spawn. So
there you go.
So
and Spawn has fans. So there you go.
There you go.
Voila.
It goes around. It comes around both ways there. All right. So everybody, favorite quotes. Jesse, do you have any favorite quotes you want to start with?
I will start with, "Victory should be naked." I just love that line.
Nice.
Just you know, I've got to. I'm thinking of, you know.
And now I'm eyeing Jesse suspiciously.
Yes.
Cautiously backing away from the monitor a little bit.
The other one that made me smile, the doctor going, "Excuse me, do you mind not farting while I'm saving the world?"
Yep.
And then you might have this one, so I'm going to wait.
Would you prefer silent but deadly?
Yes, that was good. I love the banter between the doctor and Mickey when he says, "I bet you don't even remember my name. Ricky, it's Mickey. No, it's Ricky. I think I know my own name." The doctor, "You think you know your own name? How stupid are you?" And I was thinking of that.
Yeah, just the doctor being a real dick to Mickey.
But it's the who's on first, what's on second, right? The thought of and the doctor being deliberately a little dense to poor Mickey. So that's what I got. A little
cruel to Mickey, in my opinion. But
yes.
Yeah. All right, now, Nick, what's your favorite quotes on this one?
Okay, well, the first one that I really loved was between Rose and the doctor. Rose going, "Did you know this was going to happen?" Doctor, "Nope." "Did you recognize the ship?" "Nope." "Do you know where it crashed?" "Nope." "Oh, I'm so glad I got you." So I thought that was fun.
Yes.
Also, pardon me, Rose and once again the doctor and Mickey. You got Rose going, "My mom's here," and the doctor's like, "Oh, that's just what I needed. Don't you dare make this place domestic." And Mickey's like, "You ruined my life." And then the exchange between Mickey and the doctor is another one I really liked. Mickey saying to the doctor, "You ruined my life, doctor. They thought she was dead. I was a murder suspect because of you." And the doctor's like, "See what I mean? Domestic." So yeah, that's what those are my favorite ones.
All right. My favorites. I kind of teased this a little bit earlier, where Rose goes to Mickey. So, in 12 months, have you been seeing anybody else? Mickey's like, "No." Rose's response to that, "Okay." And Mickey replies, "Mainly because everyone thinks I murdered you." Yeah, so not exactly good for the player cred. Just saying. No. Let's see what else. Mickey talking to the doctor. And I just went down to the shop, and I was thinking, like, the whole world's changed. Aliens and spaceships all in public. And here it is. How can they do that? They saw it. And the doctor replies, "They're just not ready. You're happy to believe in something that's invisible, but if it's staring you in the face, nope, can't see it. There's a scientific explanation for that. You're thick."
Nice.
Yeah. And then lastly, the doctor talking to Rose saying, "Well, you can stay here if you want, but right now there's this plasma storm brewing in the Horsehead Nebula. Fires are burning 10 million miles wide. I could fly the TARDIS right into the heart of it, then ride the shockwave all the way out, hurtle right across the sky, and end up anywhere. Your choice.
Nice.
So he's
Yes.
totally mind-effing with Rose at this point.
Yep. I didn't write it down, but I love the idea that someone asked about Eccleston's accent, and Rose says the same thing. A lot of planets have the North.
Yep.
That was a great line again.
Callback.
Callback
to
absolutely.
the pipe. Go back to Rose.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep. And all right. So rating, guys. Nick, we'll start with you. What's your rating for this story?
I'm going to give this 7.5 flatulent aliens.
All right.
Ooh, nice.
Very fair. Very fair. Jesse, how about you?
So I like it a little bit more. I'm giving it 8 out of 10 shepherd pie because I love shepherd pie. I would like to taste Jackie's shepherd pie, and I don't mean that dirty.
I was going to say, I don't know about that one.
Phrasing?
Yeah. So as for me, I think Nick kind of splits the difference between us because I'm giving this one 7 out of 10 glowing TARDIS keys.
Ah, nice.
Because here we are at episode 4, and Rose finally gets a key to the TARDIS.
Yes.
Gives her a key to the apartment. It's official.
Yeah, exactly. It's official. Yeah, it's a sleepover now. So yeah, they're shacking up in the TARDIS, and then Rose has a nice little glowing key when the TARDIS arrives. So, all right. So just thought I'd mention that. Okay, so reverse the polarity this time. Nick, any guesses? So what? Offhand?
You know what? I have a few, but they're too many to mention, Charles. I'm curious to see what you pick. I want to see if my prediction is correct.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. So I decided I was trying to think about this one. This is a little bit of a tricky one, but I think I got one. So let's go back. Let's reverse the polarity of the neutron flow all the way back to 1968 with the Dominators.
That's the one I was thinking of. Yes.
All right. The first, we have a winner. Yay. So the first serial from season 6 in 1968, written by, quote-unquote, Norman Ashby, which is actually a pseudonym for Mervyn Haseman and Henry Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
The guys that created the Yeti, if I recall correctly, back in the day. And in this one, the TARDIS materializes on the planet Dulcus, where the second Doctor tells his companions, Jamie and Zoe, that Dulcus is peaceful based on a previous visit that he had off-screen somewhere, that we never got to see. However, Dulcus is currently under threat from 2 alien dominators, Rago and his subordinate Toba, who have landed on a spaceship. Aided by their robotic servants, the Quacks, and slave owners drawn from the native Dulcan population, the Dominators set about drilling boreholes through which they plan to fire rockets into the planet's molten core. Their intention, and this is where things get a little similar to Aliens of London, World War III, is that they intend to drop an atomic seed capsule into the resulting eruption, turning Dulcus into a radioactive mass which will fuel the Dominator's space fleet.
That's why my mind went to the Dominators, yeah.
So turning a planet into a radioactive chunk to use as fuel, that's the main connection here. So the Dulcian counselors, being pacifists, refuse to retaliate, although Cully, the rebellious son of their leader Senex, has already joined forces with the TARDIS team. The Doctor eventually defeats the Dominators by intercepting the seed capsule as it's dropped and placing it on board their ship, which is then destroyed shortly after takeoff. Dulcus suffers only a minor volcanic eruption, resulting from the rockets fired into its magma. The Doctor reassures the still agitated Jamie that the planet's going to be safe, since the formation of the volcano will now only affect the island. However, Jamie reminds him that, hey, we're still on the island. So the Doctor gets horrified when he starts seeing volcanic lava flowing towards them. Dun dun dun. Woo! Cliffhanger. All right. So that's my reverse of polarity. The Dominators. After you've watched Aliens of London, World War III. There you go. Next stop everywhere, Gmail time. Got the Gmail from our wonderful two suspects, our favorite special guest companions, among others. And Holly Mack writes in. Do you want to read Holly's first, or do you want to read Dave's first?
I'll read David, you read Holly's.
Okay. So writing in, both of them writing in, of course, about Aliens of London, World War III. So Holly writes in, "Hey, Charles, Jesse, and Nick."
Hey, Holly.
Hi. Hey, Holly. Yay. Always great to hear from you. The introduction of the Slitheen and Harriet Jones. I forgot how good these two episodes are. The TARDIS is up to her old tricks again, returning Rose a whole 12 months later back home instead of 12 hours. That's a good point. Maybe the TARDIS just got jealous and wanted to screw Rose over. That's a good point. Don't blame Jackie at all for being mad, and we start the tradition of the Doctor being slapped by the companion's mother, which is a tradition I'm not a particular fan of. I think it's a little unnecessary. Mm-hmm. Too domestic, as the Ninth Doctor would say. Nothing like the handing the codes over to the enemy without realizing it. You think that MI5, MI6, or the government would have had some sort of agreement with Torchwood or UNIT or some type of alien scanning technology. That's a good point. We forgot to mention that, hey, this story introduced UNIT into the modern era a little bit, although we didn't really get to see much of them. But they did get name-checked, so I thought that was nice. So there wouldn't be any intruders. Harriet has a nice touch of Sarah Jane Smith. It's interesting. Love the Doctor trying to shush the sonic screwdriver for being so loud while he was scanning. You can take the Doctor out of UNIT, but not UNIT out of the Doctor. The Slitheen in human form are a bit over the top. Yeah, just a bit. Jackie calling the hotline to turn in the Doctor, and of course, mention him, both his name and the TARDIS sends off all sorts of alarms. Yeah, way to go, Jackie. We didn't talk about that. Brilliant job. And she wants to complain about Mickey. The Doctor, Harriet Jones, and Rose going down the list of what they know to narrow it down to where the Slitheen are and who they are and where they come from was nice. You're welcome for me sparing you reading from their home planet out loud. You mean Raxacoricofallapatorius there, Holly? Yeah, I'm showing off. Quasi rhymes with supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
There you go.
See what you did there. The Doctor is finally starting to accept Mickey as a helper, at least by the episode's end he does, and part of the team is nice and about time. Jackie's sensing Rose's feelings for the Doctor, even though Rose doesn't want to admit it yet. Mickey turning down the offer to travel in the TARDIS, but it's nice to know that he does get to go traveling with Rose and the Doctor not too much later. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin.
We love you, Holly.
Thank you, Holly.
Yeah, so all it took was the Doctor regenerating into less of a dick.
Yeah.
To accept Mickey and let him travel in the TARDIS.
May I just add a quick thing before Jesse reads the next email?
Sure.
So, folks, if you want to go on the Mickey experience, you type into your, go on the internet and put in unit.org.uk. You will actually access the website of UNIT. It will ask you for a password.
Buffalo.
Yes,
right?
They've changed it now to Bad Wolf.
Oh,
okay. Oh, nice.
Good to know.
And here's actually where we got Bad Wolf for the first time in this episode.
Yeah. The other thing we didn't mention, but Holly reminds me,
graffitied on the TARDIS, by the way.
Yeah, is
by some punk kid.
Yeah, and he makes him clean it. I thought it was nice that the Doctor saves face for Mickey, right? That he because he says, I don't want to go, I'm afraid to go, and the Doctor allows him to save face. I thought that was a nice little moment, especially how bad he treated him all episode. So, yeah. All right. On to
Dave Proctor.
Dave Proctor. Hello to the TARDIS trio. I hope you all are well.
We hope you're well, Dave.
Yes.
And your family, too.
Sorry I missed you guys last week. I didn't get a chance to listen to the Paul McGann audio play, so writing in would have been an empty gesture other than to say that I enjoy listening to you guys every week. It's always good to hear from Holly Mack as well.
Yes, it always is.
The beginning of this episode is one of my favorites, when they arrive a year instead of 12 hours after they left. I do feel bad for Mickey, though. Some awkward questioning of the doctor, and Mickey rightfully angry at him.
Testify.
Yes, Jackie gives Doctor a strong right hand. He just takes it because he earned it. I think I would have suggested showing her the TARDIS. Wait for it. Some beautiful aerial views of London as the spaceship crashes. The Doctor is forced to watch it on telly like a muggle. Very nice there.
Mm-hmm.
The Slitheen make all fat and gassy humans suspect, so I would have to lay low. I see what you did there, David. Defense Plan Delta, and all the soldiers go into action with the Doctor. That would come in handy. That was a nice point. I guess all armies have a Plan Delta, or the Doctor would use that. I love how much the Doctor cares about the abuse of the pig. The Doctor refers to the United Nations Intelligent Task Force. They must have changed it to United Intelligence Task Force later. Thank you, Charles.
Unified Intelligence Task Force. Yeah.
You have to love UNIT. The doctors probably do some back pay. The magic of vinegar. I like that Mickey gained some respect. I don't think we've seen the last of the Slitheen, but something says we haven't.
Slitheen, they're in Harry Potter.
Slitheen, yes.
Slitheen. There you go.
Thanks again to all three of you. I'm looking forward to some quality family time next week. Stay healthy. Thanks, Dave Proctor.
It's okay, Jesse. You're Texan. We realize you're playing with a handicap.
Absolutely, I am. And I'm Louisiana first, so that's even worse.
Oh, that's even worse. Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
You got a little bit of Cajun thrown in there, a little bit.
Absolutely. Boudreaux and Thibodeau in the Tardo.
You guarantee?
Yeah, guarantee.
All right, excellent. All right. So if you want to be like Holly and Dave, and please do, because they're so wonderful people, write to us at nextstopeverywheresmg@gmail.com. That's nextstopeverywheresmg for Southgate Media Group at gmail.com. Or you can find us on the Twitter machine at nextstopsmg on Twitter. Facebook, of course, Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast, and Instagram at Next Stop Everywhere Podcasts. And Nick, how about you? Where can they find all of your excellent, excellent work, sir?
As I take a deep breath. So, you can find, when it comes to me, I do host the Whiskey and Cigarettes show. So, for you country music lovers out there, if you want to find out more about that, where we play traditional country, today's country, and everything else in between, you can visit our website. That's whiskeyandcigarettesshow.com. Podcast-wise, I do host Happiness and Darkness, a superhero movie podcast, where we talk about superhero movies from Marvel, DC, Dark Horse, Image, and more. If you'd like to get on the show and discuss your favorite superhero movie, you can hit us up on our email. That's happinessanddarknesshow@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also, Gold Standard, the Oscars podcast, where with Zan Sprouse and Rachel Friend, we're discussing all the movies that won the Oscar for Best Picture from 1927's Wings to the present day. If you'd like to discuss your favorite Best Picture winner, you can send us an email at goldstandardoscars@gmail.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter. And, I think that pretty much wraps it up, because if not, I would leave nothing for you guys to say. So, passing the ball or the puck on to Jesse.
Yeah, so I want to know, I just listened to the supersized episode of Gone with the Wind. It was it is a long movie, therefore it was worthy of a long discussion. So that was a lot of fun.
I joke that the podcast episode is almost as long as the movie.
Yeah, it was. It was very long.
Well, I appreciate you both for listening to it. And one more little thing is, on Thanksgiving Thursday, you guys mentioned The Crown. On Gold Stand, we'll be having a very special episode with a very special person who was actually recently was on the latest season of The Crown. And I'm just going to leave that there.
Nice tease.
Wow, that is a good tease, yes.
Excellent, excellent.
Well, you can find me on the interweb on Twitter at Jesse Jackson DFW. You can find me on Facebook and Instagram. You can hear me twice a week on Set Listing Bruce, the Bruce Springsteen podcast, where I talk to fans of music all over the world. Charles has guest starred at least a couple times. Nick has guest starred. Just recently had Maureen Van Zant, Little Steven's wife, on twice. And this coming, as we're recording this Thursday, we're having a very special episode. Holly Cara Price, who was a longtime assistant to Little Steven and many other members of the E Street Band, recently died of cancer. And we remember her.
Oh.
She was, just a truly, truly great person. And
That's sad.
One of her friends is on there, and we talk about her legacy. Some really, really funny stories. There is a picture that shows that they're on the private plane, and Bruce comes behind her and has put a blanket over her. So she was very active with the supporting the band, and so it was very cool. So that's coming up, and so please check that out. Charles?
Yes?
I think you do a couple podcasts, don't you?
Yeah, so now Nick can understand why I take these big, deep breaths, because just to get all the podcasts, out of my lungs, I guess. All right, as for me, of course, at Charles Skaggs on the Twitter, at Charles Skaggs on Instagram, Facebook, of course, Charles Skaggs in Hilliard, Ohio, and my blog of geeky things.
Damn good coffee. And hot.
Damn good coffee and hot. We're talking about all the stuff we talk about here on Next Stop Everywhere, Doctor Who, Torchwood, Sarah Jane Adventures, Big Finish Audios, and more. And then, of course, all the other podcasts that I do for Southgate Media Group, including Titan Talk, the Titans podcast, which is currently on hiatus. But, of course, both Nick and Jesse have been a part of that, and will hopefully continue to be a part of it as we wait for Titan Season 3 and Doom Patrol Season 3. So that one's on hiatus, but my current active podcasts right now, of course, include the Fandom Zone podcast that I do with Nick right now, where we just kind of hit the halfway point of The Boys Season 2. So we got about 5 more episodes to go on that one before we call it quits on that one, but it's been a lot of fun talking The Boys with Nick, and I really appreciate him joining me for that, and hopefully we'll get Jesse back on to talk something else, so stay tuned for that as well. And then, of course, Ghost with Twin Peaks podcast that I do with Zan Sprouse, who Nick has just nicely mentioned, where we talk all things Twin Peaks, David Lynch, etc., etc., and we are currently going to be doing our Criterion Collection rundown of all the special features. That'll be doing that hopefully tomorrow. So that should be up shortly. So I hope everybody checks that out. And then lastly, I have to mention a certain podcast that Zan and I are doing on the side. This is our side project called Drunk Cinema, which has been a lot of fun. We got the first episode up. Hopefully you've heard it. If not, I hope you guys check it out, where we sit back, we enjoy some adult beverages, some adult language, and enjoyed Batman 1989, which was very, very interesting, to say the least. All the credit goes to my wonderful co-host, Dan Sprouse, who is just perfection when it comes to drinking and watching movies. And if you enjoy Zan here on Next Stop Everywhere, you'll certainly enjoy her there, as well as on Ghostwood. It's been a lot of fun. Hope everybody checks it out. We're just kind of getting off the ground, so I hope everybody, if you enjoy what we do, please share the links, share all the Facebook and Twitter links and whatnot, and also, tell your friends about us, because we're trying to build this podcast up, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. And if nothing else, come on back for episode 2, because here probably in another week or so, we're going to be talking Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
Nice.
So if you enjoyed what we did with Batman, when do you get a load of what we do with Ferris Bueller's Day Off? It's going to be a lot of fun. So that's it. Nick, thank you so much for joining us, sir. I hope you had fun. It's been like I said, it's been a long time since you've been on the podcast here, but you're always welcome to come back. So anytime you come up with an episode you want to talk about, you're more than welcome. Just drop me a line. You know how to reach me.
Well, I definitely want to thank both you, and Charles, and Jesse, of course, for having me back on. It's always a joy to talk to you both. And, I just had a blast, because it's just, 3 friends just discussing a TV show that means so much to all 3 of us. So, it's just thank you again so much. Really appreciate it.
We should be thanking you, because you're always so wonderful on our show. And Jesse, of course, thank you as well, because I always enjoy talking Doctor Who with you. And now that we're in the modern era, you're really in the zone once again.
Yes, it
Your
is.
comfort zone.
It is. I have to admit, I enjoy going back to these modern episodes a great deal, and I'm really excited about because next week we should be talking My Doctor, right?
10th Doctor, yeah.
Yes.
So next time on Next Stop Everywhere, we're going to be talking at episode 210, The Doctor's Daughter.
Oh.
And this is one that surprisingly we haven't talked about yet. And joining us for this one, or at least supposed to be joining us, we'll find out, Dave Proctor as special guest companion. So Dave recently let me know that his schedule's kind of opened up, so I'm hoping he'll be able to join us. So Dave, if you're listening, I'm trying to get a hold of you, and just to make sure, because I want to make sure that you're good for our recording time on this coming Wednesday. But I think it should be a lot of fun. Dave made a big impression, obviously, the first time he was here talking Doctor Who, so now he's going to do a 10th Doctor story, and I think it should be a lot of fun. And Jesse gets to reunite with Dave after their set-listing Bruce discussion.
Yes.
So it should be interesting to have the three of us together next time.
It's going to be a blast.
All right, so everybody, thanks again for listening. Hope you had fun. Nick, thanks again. Jesse, thank you once again. And then everybody come on back next time, episode 210, The Doctor's Daughter, with special guest companion Dave Proctor, right here on Next Stop Everywhere, the Doctor Who podcast. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.